is, right? And bear with me while I get it. So there he is, my youngest munchkin. So anyway, after flipping through the resources, she said, I'm amazed looking at his resources and reading in the post. I desire this for my kids, but I don't even know how to lean into their passions yet. I don't know their passions, and I'm not sure they know them. So that's what this is all about right now, is I wanted to go through a few things. And I want to start with the truth that success in homeschooling will look different on every single one of us. As a matter of fact, it will look different on every single one of your kids, just like mine. Out of all 5 of my kids, I would consider them all to be successful homeschoolers. They have gone on to do just amazing things. And I didn't tap into this until my oldest, who is now, gosh, almost 30. I forget, you do the math. He was born in 1993. So he was in 8th grade, and he was frustrated with so many things. And I paused and I looked at him and I realized I was killing his joy. I had his day so packed with school that there was no space for him. There was no space for him to pursue his dreams. And so I sat him across the kitchen table, sent the 4 little boys out to play. And I said, buddy, I am so sorry. I have buried you in paperwork, and we're not going to do that anymore. So take your language arts and your history and push it aside. From now on, what you're going to do for English is you're going to work on that novel that you've been trying to squeeze in between the cracks. And I know you want to be a history professor. So instead of doing history, what we'll do is I will give you a basic outline, a form, and then you will comb through history and start creating your master files for your future classroom. He burst into tears. Really? It was at that moment I realized that I had missed the mark. It took me years to figure this stuff out. So don't like, when you look through some of the things that my son creates, my youngest son creates, don't think, oh, my kids can't do that. Each one of my kids has different passions and different abilities, right? And each of your kids do as well. So let's talk about, by the end of this video, I'll give you some simple, actionable things that you can do to tap into your own kid's passion. You probably will be tempted to just brush them aside because it's going to sound too easy. It's going to sound too simple. But I'm telling you, it really is. This is the core of it right now. Are you ready? The first thing that you need to do is you need to realize that nothing happens overnight. Our kids are not Amazon Prime. They don't show up in 2 days. They show up in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, depending on your kids. One of my kids, it took me all summer to teach him how to ride a bike. It was ridiculous. And then he went overnight to riding the bike really well. My youngest son, Stephen, didn't read until he was 10. All of my kids were delayed if you compare them to public school. So give your kids time to develop. Give yourself time to develop. You know, if you look at something really closely, it doesn't make sense. You don't see it. You don't see where you're going. You don't see the end result. It's not until you get the proper perspective that you can see what's actually going on. And that same thing, that same truth is, it's true when you're talking about your kids. You may not see their passions and their abilities when they're 5. You know, when I think about Stephen, he's the youngest. And the next brother above him, they are like oil and vinegar. They either make the most tasty salad dressing combination on the planet, or they always separate and fight like cats and dogs. They're like frick and frack. They just clash like crazy. And when Stephen, who could not read, was really little, he delighted in tormenting Sam. Tormenting Sam. I mean, look at that face. This is Sam. He just loved tormenting this guy. So I think he was 4. I taught him, I said, "Dude, all you have to do is challenge boys and they go for it." I go, "I think I'm gonna teach you how to do a chain stitch. And I think you can make the world's longest chain, crochet." I handed him a crochet hook and I taught him how to do a single crochet on a not a single crochet, but a chain stitch. And he went on to make the world's longest chain stitch at 4. Oh, it was like 75 or 100 feet long. It was fantastic. And when we did read aloud or when the kids were working quietly, he would pull out that chain and he would work on the longest chain stitch. Well, a year or so later, I taught him how to add on rows, and we took those pockets of time in quiet time. My kids were required to take a nap until their 5th birthday. Oh, it was their business whether or not they fell asleep, but they were required to have that quiet time pocket in the afternoon. And I always would promise them, don't worry. If your body takes over and you fall asleep, I promise that I will wake you up after nap time so you don't miss anything fun. Stephen needed me to make that promise every day. Otherwise, he couldn't rest. But anyway, after their 5th birthday, we still kept quiet time. It was quiet reading time. It was silent time in the house. And it was so important for them to just have pockets of time where they could work on Legos or crochet or paint or write or whatever it is. Read was the big one. And so we had this 1.5 to 2 hour pocket every afternoon. Well, so by the time Stephen was 5-ish, we would sit down during quiet time and I started to teach him how to add on rows. Fast forward a few years later, he started to build his first Afghan. I should have grabbed it. It's gorgeous. He invented stitches. It was amazing. Fast forward to right before COVID, he decided or he discovered these little amigurumis is what they're called. They're the little teeny tiny creations that you make with a hook. And he started to pump them out at the rate that popcorn pops after it, when everything starts to explode. He started to really pump these out. So then he created a little class, da 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 da. So we leaned into his crocheting. And of course, yeah, now he makes whales of all sizes. This is he made this cute little bee, which of course is to torment Sam. It's got like a little pokey on there, so the bee can sting his brother. This is one of my favorites. It's a little owl. It's a little owl that's whoops, I threw him. It's a little owl. It's actually a Tweety bird that's hiding inside of an owl. Isn't that adorable? Okay, so what happened? We leaned into the fact that Stephen was a very busy kid and he needed things to do with his hands, which leads me to the next tip for homeschooling. And that is something that I go over in my book. And the reality is that we need to study our kids. You don't have to do it all. You just study your kids for a day or two and you're looking for what are they really into? What are they passionate about? Where are their strengths? And where are their weaknesses? And then you kind of pick one of each and you just lean into that for 6 months, 12 months, or longer. A lot of my kids had the struggle of not having enough self-control. And so we would do self-control workshops where with a timer we do things where they would have to control their body, etc. When it comes to strengths, wherever that is, strengths, my camera's backwards, we would lean into that. So if they were amazing writers, we'd give them more time to write. If they're skilled with things like paint, we'd give them more time to paint. You've seen me post videos of Isaac playing the guitar. Isaac, who is now 20 and getting ready to go to like a worship school soon in the fall, hopefully, prayerfully. He started playing the guitar before he was maybe 10, dibble-dabbled with some little classes. And then when we moved to Washington, he asked me one day if he could look on YouTube for some videos to learn a song. And the rest is history. That kid sat and taught himself all sorts of stuff on the guitar. And by the time he was 14, 16, probably 16, maybe 16 or 17, doesn't matter. He was then starting to get some help with somebody at our church. And now he's 20. So we're talking probably 10 years of diligent practice. What we did, another tip is that we stripped away busyness. Now, sports aren't bad. Video games aren't bad. Having lots of things on your calendar isn't bad. But if the kids are so busy that they don't have time to lean into what they really love, then in my opinion, they're being robbed. They need to be busy enough that they don't get into trouble. It's very important when you have a kid like Steven that he has a purpose with what he's doing. However, do they really need all the activities that are on the calendar? When I think about Isaac in particular, when we first moved up to Washington, we were homeschooling, obviously, and we didn't really know a lot of people yet. And he really leaned into learning to play the guitar. And I am not exaggerating when I say he would practice 4 hours a day. 4 hours a day. He reminded me of this last night because he asked me to teach him how to do the bridge shuffle of a deck of cards. And so I'm like, okay, first you go like this, and then you go like this. And so I'm showing him the deck of cards, and he proceeded to do it over and over and over and over. And I said, dude, you're reminding me of when you were little and you decided you were going to learn to snap, and you spent the next 2 days like this until you could do it. Leaning in, stripping away busyness, and allowing kids to get bored really leans into the truth of what my dad, and I think Einstein, used to say, and that is creativity lives on the other side of boredom. Kids don't want to go outside and play until they're outside and playing for like half an hour, right? They don't want to play quietly in their room until they discover that if you mix this and this together, it makes something fun. They don't want to slow down. They want to be running around. And yet the magic is in the boredom. The magic is in allowing life to quiet down so that they can figure out what is it that they love to do. My kids spent countless hours building Legos. Countless hours building Legos. I had rules. They weren't allowed outside because they were expensive and we weren't going to be replacing expensive Legos because they got lost in the garden. And in the house, we'd lay a sheet down and they would build on the sheet so that we could keep track of the Legos. But you really want to strip away your kids' schedules. Look at your family schedule. If you added another thing to your calendar and your calendar spontaneously combusts in rebellion, then you've got too much going on. Find a way to strip it back. And then, I know it's hard, but turn off tech. Technology's not bad. It's not. TV's not bad. Video games aren't bad. Technology, watching YouTube isn't bad. But require that your kids have quiet, no tech time in the day at some point. And it has to be long enough that they get on the other side of it. My favorite summer was watching my kids after they refused to clean their room for the last time. So I took away all of their toys. All of them. Every toy, every bin, everything. And I put it in my room and I said, they're mine. Enjoy your summer. Those kids had the most creative, amazing summer because they weren't distracted by all the stuff. They had a blast. And to this day, I still regret giving them back all their stuff. I still trip on Legos. And my youngest is 16. Okay, so we know that we give our kids time. We know that we study our kids to find their weaknesses and their strengths so that we can identify what is it that they need to do. When Steven started all this stuff, when he started crocheting, it wasn't because I thought he was going to be a master crocheter. It's because the kid was driving his brother crazy. And so we also we strip away busyness, we allow for boredom, and then we start to give them breadcrumbs of activities, things that When we see that they are interested in something, we start just sprinkling picture books from the library, art supplies, musical things, shovels and dirt and seeds, or whatever the things are. We start sprinkling things. One of you, Miss Trisha, her daughter leaned into a writing assignment. Oh, I'm so proud of this little girl. She leaned into a writing assignment. All she needed to do was write a paragraph, but as she was a paragraph or two, but as she was writing, she fell in love with her character, the chameleon, and she started rolling around the idea in her mind that, well, maybe I could write a chapter book. And look at this. She went on to write a beautiful, um, beautifully illustrated, watercolor-filled, delightful story about chameleon's adventure in Rainbow Forest because she was given the time to lean in to something that she loved. So important. The breadcrumbs of activities were things like watercolors and then giving watercolor supplies and then giving her time to write. It's fantastic. Okay, so all of these things are the premise behind they're the ideas when I wrote my first book were in here so that more people would be able to see the magic of homeschooling, the secret sauce of leaning into what your kids love and then sprinkling opportunities. All of that is that was the fertile ground of the first book that I wrote. And it's a short book. It's a fast book. But the whole premise in there is to be a studier of your kids and to watch for things that ignite them and cause them to be passionate. Oh, yeah, Stephen is a really good example of what happens when you lean into a kid's passions. Not only is he a goofball, check this out. Okay, I had to do four takes about that, but he is a potter and a sculptor is ridiculously talented. He needed so much paint to complete the paintings that he completed. But then look at when the world shut down and COVID hit, that's when he discovered the amigurumis and he started crocheting a lot. And he has so many adorable, amazing, cute little things that he has made. And it's because he had the time to lean in to one day he disappears. I'll show you in a second when we get there. One day he disappears and he wouldn't let me look. And I'm like, dude, what are you working on? He's like, don't peek. That showed up on my shoulder one day, that little goofy thing. So anyway, there he is. He's getting ready to row. He created, let me stop the video so it's not making noise in the background. He created a little stitching with Stephen class. Again, leaning into what he loves. He loved the little amigurumis. So I wanted him to apply other skill sets with this. So it's like, what can you do with this so that you can reach out to others but expand your skill set? So I taught him how to set up a class, and he created a recording studio, and with his own hands, he then created this stitching for Stephen class. Oh, it opened in another window. When you click on that spot on the page, the link is in the descriptions. You can click and you can watch his chain stitch part for free, and you can see with many takes he was able to break down the process of how you crochet to kids. Kind of a, in my house filled with testosterone, it's kind of a fun little hobby for him to have, but he has this amazing little class, and he crochets. He's a photographer. Why did he take pictures of mushrooms? Because we were studying, the next chapter in his biology book was fungus, and he rolled his eyes like, Mom, seriously, fungus? So I said, hide the book, just hide the book. And every morning, and then actually the next morning, I handed him my phone and I said, do you want to go, if I give you my phone, can we go hunting for mushrooms and can you take some pictures? And sure enough, he took amazing pictures, amazing. And we did that for 2 weeks straight. And one of the days we're on our way home and he I'm watching him take pictures over there, and he comes running up to me, and he runs on his tippy toes. Still, we kinda tease him about that, but he runs on his tippy toes, and he's like, "You know, I thought fungus was gonna be really super boring, but it's amazing." I had him. I go, "That's fantastic." So the next day, we broke out that biology book, and we started studying the fungus from that point. He didn't just take pictures, though. He studied the parts and the pieces of what makes a mushroom and what makes fungus fungus. And then I had him create a printable where he took what he knew and he turned it into a printable resource that other kids can use as they're studying. It's somewhere in here. I think it's a learning packet. It's going to open in another page. So when you click on there, it has all kinds of worksheets and stuff. Now, why? Not just so that he could sell stuff. There's so many skills packed up into this. We were exercising. He was using his skills of observation. He fine-tuned some photography tips, and not tips, but photography skills. He learns how to fine-tune using the programs that he makes the printables on. So using Google Slides and Canva, graphic designs and such to put together different elements on a page. Then he learns how to write descriptions and titles and how to post up online. This was such a rich experience, all because he rolled his eyes when we pulled out the book. And so I put everything away and I gave him the time for his interest to catch up. And then look at what he did with it. He ran with it. So much more was achieved because we hid the book for 2 weeks and allowed him to fall in love with the idea of fungus in general, being fascinated with all the different things. It served him so much better than if he had just read and answered the questions and taken a quiz, if that makes sense. And those things aren't bad, and we do those things, and he did do those things, read, answer questions, and take quizzes. But most of the time, we tried to do this. We tried to lean into what he was doing. One time on a walk, and one time on a walk, he says, when he was, I think he was in 8th grade. 8th or 9th grade. And I looked around and I realized that all 4 of his brothers were not at the kitchen table for many days in the week. It was just he and I. And I realized this is like, I never get time alone with just Stephen. And I purposed and I told him, I said, we're going to do school differently this year. You and I are going to spend a lot of time together. In my mind, I considered it a Tom Sawyer kind of a year. We kind of hid a lot of the curriculum and I just spent time with him. We'd go on treasure walks in the morning. Where I live, if you walk 2 miles west, you end up going down a bank and now you're standing on the shore of Dyes Inlet, Dyes Inlet in on the Puget Sound. It's a body of water. And so we would walk to the seashore and we would search for treasures. We became obsessed with looking for agates on the beach. And so every day we would walk down. Before we would walk, I would look at his lessons. I would look at things in English, history, science, etc., that I wanted him to focus on that day. And at some point on the 2-mile walk down, we would talk about those things. We would break apart grammar. We would talk about quotes from different books. We would talk about things he was reading. We would discuss history, and we just spent time together. Well, after 2 weeks of this, he again comes right next to me because he's my snuggle bug. And he's like, don't laugh. I go, why would I laugh? He goes, I think I know what I want to be when I grow up. He goes, but don't laugh. I go, dude, why would I laugh? I go, what do you want to be? And he says, a cardiothoracic surgeon. I'm like, what? He goes, a cardiothoracic surgeon. Now, this is where I took a page out of Carrie Beck's handbook, Wisdom. That woman is amazing. She said, whenever your kids say that they want to do something, don't fill in the blank. Just ask them, well, how can I help you get there? So I did that. How can I help you become a cardiothoracic surgeon? And he goes, I hate to say it, but I think I need to do a lot more math and science. I really need to dig deep into those things as much as I hate it. And he went on to tell me everything that he needed, which I recorded as where you can see our feet walking. And he tells me everything that he wants to do in order to become a cardiothoracic surgeon. Amazing. So, how do we lean into that? Again, we gave him the whole year to study the heart. And I sprinkled some breadcrumbs by I got a model of a heart, I got a color college level anatomy book. We found these amazing, not tutorials. There's a guy on YouTube that is a medical student, and he shared about how he takes notes on an iPad. And so Stephen studied how he took notes on an iPad, and then he emulated that on my iPad, and he would take notes and he would color code them and draw pictures and stuff. Gorgeous. So he studied how to study, he studied how to take notes, he studied the anatomy of the heart, he colored the anatomy of the heart, but then he even created let's see if I can get close enough. He created a foldable heart packet that when kids are saying those are my doodle girls. He created this model foldable of the heart because I looked at him and I said, I was looking for a paper craft for you to do as you're studying the heart. And as I'm looking at these, I think you can make something better. Dude, I'm totally willing to buy you a DIY foldable heart unit, but I think you can make something better. And he did. It took him 2 days, I think, and he just put his mind to it and made it so that you could see all the different parts of the heart, and it's fantastic. And he made it 3 different levels so that young kids could do it or older kids could do it. So impressive. Again, leaning into the journey of what is it that your kids are interested in and how can you help them get there. So, so, so important that we give our kids time and resources. Um, and I think that was it on there. So that's my buddy. He is my absolute snuggle bug. Look at him, isn't he cute? I was just so impressed. I'm so impressed with everything that he does, but I'm not impressed because he's talented and gifted. I'm impressed because he's diligent and disciplined and passionate and determined to do well. You know, he currently right now, and this is not just a brag about Stephen thing, but I think it's important that when you are at the beginning of your homeschool journey, that you see what could happen when you lean into your kids' passions. You know, when I was a young homeschooler, this type of homeschooling was what I wanted, but it freaked me out because what if I mess up their education? What if we don't finish the curriculum? What if I don't teach them all the things? How are they going to succeed if we do things like paint on Fridays or go for a 4-mile walk every morning and take pictures of mushrooms? How can that possibly be successful homeschooling? Well, the reality is that when you lean into a passion and then you start to lay skills on top of that and you give time to practice, you get so much more out of education and life than when you're just turning and doing the next lesson. Does that make sense? This is it's secret sauce. It's why at this stage in my journey of homeschooling that I am creating my secret sauce homeschooling, secret homeschooling with secret sauce membership group. And this is not a plug, but it's still, I'm going to mention it. So it's why I'm creating secret sauce that my girls in the membership already have their hands on these cards. But the idea is that you take something that your kid is totally amazingly passionate about. So maybe it is they love to make things with paper. So you go through your secret sauce packet and you find, well, what kind of activity can they do as they're studying that they can work with paper and then infuse what it is that they're learning. It's the magic of leaning into passions and talents and abilities. It's the reality that everything that our kids do, that the task itself isn't what's important. My two of my kids are still in college, in the lower parts of college. So Stephen is a junior in high school, getting his associate's degree. Sam, my cute, sweet Sam, just got his associate's of science degree. Whatever, right? Good for your kids, Bekki. As they're struggling. Yesterday, Stephen is in a biology class and his lab partner didn't do what he was supposed to do. And he's been begging him for days, please send me the pictures. Please send me the pictures, because it's due today. They have a big exam today on things that they looked through at a microscope for, and his lab partner has the pictures. And Stephen needs to study them so that he can label them appropriately in the exam. And so we've been talking about this a lot. The exam itself isn't the life lesson. It's not what you're supposed to be gleaning from this class. The grade matters. You should do your best. But what are you truly supposed to be learning? You're supposed to be learning how to work with others, and that it's not always fun. And sometimes, a lot of times, other people don't pull their weight. So how can you get around that? The next time you're in a group, how can you avoid being in this position where somebody is holding the keys to your success in their hands because they're terrible at communication? That type of dialogue, looking past the assignment, looking past the curriculum to find the golden nuggets, to find the life skills. That's where successful homeschooling, that's where it's at. Because mama, at the end of the journey, what if by the time your kids graduate high school, they were kind, they were disciplined, they were determined, they were responsible, they were honest, they were help seekers, expert help seekers, able to say the words, I don't know, but let me find out and I'll get back to you. What if when they see somebody trip and fall and drop something, they rush to their aid and help them get their stuff back up? What if they open the door just because they can? What if they're the first to volunteer and the last to leave? What if they still love God? What if they're wonderful people that love to read and love to learn, that they have teachable hearts? That's why we homeschool. We don't homeschool to finish grade 7 of a curriculum or pass the standardized tests with higher scores than the kid next to them. That's not why we homeschool. We homeschool because we want our kids to thrive and soar, right? And so we do this by giving them time and leaning into the journey. We study their strengths and their weaknesses. We strip away busyness and we allow them to be bored. Yeah, it's going to mean more work, but we allow them to be bored. We give them breadcrumbs of activities along the way. And then you just never know what kinds of things they're going to do. You just never know. Our oldest is a master historian. He's brilliant, creative, and amazing. Our second son is a very talented, creative screenwriter, and you'll see his name on the big screen someday. Amazingly talented, very compassionate, wonderful man of God. Our third son is a gifted musician that is gifted because he's put thousands of hours into his music. Thousands of hours. It's unbelievable. Our fourth son is our academic. He's the one that wanted to know that Pythagorean's theorem was true because he was going to prove it was true, not because people have been saying so for hundreds of years. Yeah, he drove me crazy. And then Stephen is I swear, if there was a position out there for a professional pogo stick jumping, sword fighting, um, paper crafting painter and sculptor, Stephen would be your guy. He's unbelievably talented, but very, very busy and needs to be busy. Otherwise, he implodes and drives everybody crazy. So circling back to the beginning, when one of you out there said that you don't know what your kids' passions and talents are yet. You just don't know. I'm going back to look at the comment. Amazed at looking at Steven's resources. You know what? Honestly, I am too. He finished this painting last night when I was sleeping, and I woke up this morning and I just stared at it like, dude, are you serious? I cannot believe the talent, the things that he creates is fantastic. And then she went on to say that she desires this for her kids, but she doesn't know their passions yet. Well, circle back and start just studying and recognize that what you do today, what you do this week, you may not see the fruit of that for years, years, but keep studying and keep giving them time. Keep stripping away the busyness and give them, feed them activities and things, books, resources, movies, documentaries, experiences, adventures that feed their passions. And you're going to be dumbfounded what 10 years of that from now will do. It's amazing. So that's it for today. Tips for successful homeschooling. I would love to hear your thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts. I'd also like to invite you to Homeschooling with Secret Sauce, the membership group that I have. Let me pull up um, the site. It is a monthly membership where you get all the goods. You get everything that I'm creating included, and it's thrown at you for just a few dollars a month. It is an amazing space filled with moms that are unbelievably gifted and talented and wonderful and just love their kids. And well, you love your kids too. It's on Patreon. It's A Better Way to Homeschool. And I'll add that link in there. But the secret sauce moms are where I am just pouring out everything to, and just I'm trying to bring my favorite phrase, bless your socks off, to life. And so I'm hoping that some of them will pipe up and say, hey, it's a great place. So anyway, that's it. Tips for Successful Homeschooling by Bekki Sayler. Have a wonderful day and let me know your thoughts. I would love to hear them.